Hello friends, welcome to ICSI GST video classes. Today we are going to cover topic composition scheme or composition levy. Friends, this composition levy is basically covered under section 10 of CGST Act 2017. For your information, I would like to tell you here that while reading the CGST Act 2017, you will find at various places the mention of this section 10. So, you must always remember that this section 10 is related to composition levy, right? According to me, this composition levy actually is a small world in GST because this scheme is different from the regular scheme which is drafted under this act, and this composition levy which is covered under section 10, it has its own advantages, right? Before discussing the advantages, first I would like to clarify or would like to tell you what actually is this composition levy is. The composition levy is actually it's an alternative method of levy the tax designed for the taxpayers whose turnover is up to the 75 lakhs and rupees 50 lakhs in case of few states. Now friends, when this act was rolled out on 1st July 2017, at that time this limit was 50 lakhs and 25 lakhs in few cases. Thereafter there were some changes, and after the changes the limit was 75 lakh and 50 lakhs in few cases. And very interesting to know that the last meeting of GST Council, which was held on 6th of October 2017, that was the 22nd GST Council meeting. In that meeting, now it is decided that composition levy can be opted if your aggregate turnover is up to rupees 1 crore. So friends, in the slide now it's shown that it's a 75 lakh, but I would like to tell you the recent updates, recent notification of GST, and as per the recent, what is the limit? Limit is not right now the 75 lakh, now the limit is 1 crores and the maximum limit, the aggregate limit which is actually prescribed in the CGST Act, of which the council has the authority, that too is 1 crore. What it means? It means now they have exhausted the upper limit now. Now friends, this is not the compulsion that if your turnover, your aggregate turnover is minimum less than 1 crore, then it does not mean it is a mandatory on you to opt the composition scheme. No, this composition scheme is optional for you because there are so many conditions. First of all, you have to fulfill those. If you are fulfilling those conditions, only then you can opt this composition scheme, provided your aggregate turnover is less than rupees 1 crore. So friends, I use the term aggregate turnover. In composition scheme, it is very important to know what is aggregate turnover, because the basic eligibility criteria is dependent on the aggregate turnover. So it is very important to know the calculation and the meaning of aggregate turnover. Now, what you will include in aggregate turnover? For example, your total taxable supplies will be included. Even your exempt supplies will also be added in aggregate turnover. Please keep this thing in mind that you will include the exempt supplies as well. Then if you are exporting something, you are doing some export business, even that turnover will also be added here, right? This is the points which will be included in the calculation. and certain things will be excluded while making the calculations. And the one point here is inward supplies under the reverse charge. You will not include this reverse charge inward supplies. And again one more point, that your central, state or UT and the integrated taxes and cess, they will also be excluded from the calculation of your aggregate turnover, and it will be the one pan basis calculation, right. Now, as I told you that there are certain conditions, there are certain limitations with respect to the composition scheme, and now through this slide I am going to explain you that who cannot avail the composition scheme. First of all, if the person is a casual taxable person or the non-resident taxable person, these type of people, they cannot avail the scheme. Thereafter, for example, if you are making the supply of services, even then you cannot opt the scheme, but there is one exception, and the exception for the services is restaurant business. Then for example, and the person supplying goods which are not taxable under the GST, those people can also, they can't avail this composition scheme. Thereafter, if you are making some interstate outward supplies, so it means, what it means, that your business should be intrastate only. For example, I would like to clear this point through the example. For example, if I am doing a business in Delhi, I am making the sales only in Delhi. It means my sales, my supply is in Delhi only. I am not selling outside, only inside the Delhi. It means this is called the intra-state transaction. Then composition scheme is allowed. For example, now I want to sell my goods from Delhi to UP. Under this circumstance, there is a interstate outward supplies. So, under this condition, I cannot avail composition scheme, right. Another point which will not allow me to opt this composition scheme is if I am supplying some goods or services or both through the electronic commerce operator, even then a person, a taxpayer or the eligible person, he cannot avail the benefit of this composition scheme. Now, very important point to be noted here, I am mentioning that interstate supply is not allowed under composition, but I can purchase interstate. Interstate here means my business is in Delhi, but I can purchase from the UP. For example, if I need the raw material, I can purchase the raw material inward supplies even from Maharashtra or any state of the country. There is not any restriction under composition supply for making the inward supplies, right. Now friends, we will cover the journey of this composition scheme. Now first of all, for example, if I know that this is my turnover, yes, I can avail the composition scheme. Okay, I am not falling under any restrictions under the composition scheme, that I am fulfilling all the constraints. Now there is no problem in opting this composition scheme. Now the journey of the registration will start. Now the first step, if I want to enter in the GST regime, if I want to enter, if I want to register myself as a composite dealer, then the first requirement or the first situation, in fact this is a situation, is the provisional registration. And this provisional registration concept arose at the time of transition, that is July 1, 2017, because at that time many taxpayers, they were already registered in, some were registered in VAT, some were registered in excise, service tax. They were under the existing scheme, under that scheme. Now for example, under the GST regime, if they want to opt the composition scheme, then what is the procedure? What is the route for those people who at the time of transition? For them, government through GST Act, they prescribe the form CMP01. By filing this form, you can inform that you want to opt composition scheme. So, this is the one thing. Now, second situation is the new registration. For example, I want to now take the registration. I feel that yes, I can opt the composition scheme and I am a new registrant here. Then within the 30 days of my obligation to get registration, I will file form REG01. This is the same form which is filed for the even the regular scheme, and in this form there is a one separate column in which you will mention that you want to opt the composition scheme. Then in this regime you will get the registration as a composite dealer. This is the second situation of entering into the composition scheme. Now the third situation. For example, now I am registered on 1st of July as a regular taxpayer, right? But now during the year I took a decision that no, I want to now opt the composition scheme, right? Now let me tell you that during the year you cannot opt actually the composition scheme, because this composition scheme is available at the beginning of the financial year. So what is the meaning here? Now I will explain the meaning here through one example. For example, if I feel that on 1st of November, now I want to take the composition scheme, and till the 1st of November I am a regular taxpayer in the GST. Now government here will not allow me to switch over in the composition scheme. Now what is the procedure? Now I have to file CMP02 and I will intimate that from the beginning of the next financial year I will opt composition scheme. What it means? Composition scheme to me will be given from the 1st April 2018. I will not be allowed to take the composition scheme from the 1st November 2017, because this is the conditions prescribed under law. Now friends, the first journey, in this journey, first step we have covered that we have taken a registration under composition scheme. Now see, now we will study through this slide the effective date of my composition. Now under the first situation, if I am through transition, definitely if I am through transition, then the first applicable date, effective date for me will be 1st July 2017. For example, if I have opted the new registration, definitely the date on which I am liable to be registered, I am liable to get the registration. For example, I am a new registrant, like I was not doing any business, but now I want to register my business as a composite dealer. So under this situation, the effective date will be the date which I am supposed to be registered as per the law. So GST registration part is over now. First step we have taken, that we have taken a registration under composition scheme, right? Through this diagram, through this representation, we will come to know about the effective dates which I have explained you earlier, right? Now you can study the effective dates through this chart. Thereafter friends, now I am registered under composition scheme. Now thereafter there are certain post registration obligations on me, because I am a composite dealer, there are certain obligations. Now first of the obligation on the composite dealer will be to issue bill of supply. Very important point here, because the composite dealers, they cannot issue the tax invoice, because they are not collecting tax from the ultimate consumer. The tax paid by them is the cost for them. So it means they cannot issue the tax invoice, and in substitute to their tax invoice, in which tax will not be charged by them, and that format, that sheet will be called as a bill of supply instead of tax invoice, right. This is the one post obligation on the composite dealer. Second thing, now you have a bill to which you are calling as a bill of supply. On this bill, it should be clearly mentioned that composition taxable person not eligible to collect tax on supplies. So, this phrase must be written on the top of the bill of supply. This is the another requirement, another obligation. And the same statement he will also display in his premises as well. So that, what's the reason behind? So that the customer or the person who are dealing with him, they came to know that this person is not the regular taxpayer, but he is the composite dealer and he is not allowed to charge tax from the ultimate consumer. But that does not mean that there is not a component of tax in this, because this tax will be paid by the supplier, composite supplier, and it will become his cost. Now, next point, that he will not charge any tax from the customer, I explained it earlier. Now, one more thing. For example, this situation arises at the time of the transition, because earlier, before the 1st of July, for example, I was the regular taxpayer. Now under this GST, now I have taken a composition scheme. Now at this transition time, I am supposed to tell the details of my stock. Now for this, prescribed format is CMP03, where I will mention my details for the stock, right. Now friends, now it is clear, I have taken registration, I know the scheme, I know my obligations. Now I have one more obligation with respect to the rate of tax, that how much rate of tax I will have to pay to the government of India. So this is actually the main advantage of this composition scheme, that there is a one rate of tax. Like you are not falling under the ambiguity that what rate you have to charge actually. If you are a composite dealer and if you are for example a manufacturer, then manufacturer will pay GST 2%, traders they will pay 1%, and the restaurant services they will pay total 5%. Here through the chart you can come to know that how this 2% is calculated. Here 1% is for CGST, 1% is for SGST. Again for traders in 1% calculation 0.5% is for CGST, 0.5% is for SGST. Similarly 2.5% for CGST and 2.5% for SGST. In case of the restaurant services, by making it total 5%. So this is actually the main beauty of this composition scheme, because now you are not burdened with knowing the n number of rates. Here the concept is very much clear that this is the one rate you will apply, you will calculate this rate on the aggregate turnover, right. By multiplying this rate with the aggregate turnover, you will make the payment of this tax to government exchequer. Now friends, the next step is with respect to, because now you have collected the tax, now the tax is with you. Now you know that how much rate of tax you have to pay to government. Now how will you pay the tax? Tax is paid through filing of the returns. Now this is the next step in this journey, that is the filing of returns. Again, the beauty of this concept composition, that government has relaxed the composite dealers from making the filings on the monthly basis. Here they have asked that okay, you file the quarterly returns and even you will pay the quarterly tax, right. So, which form here will be applicable? GSTR 4. This is the form you will file after the end of the quarter, before the 18th of next month. After the completion of one quarter, you will make the filing through GSTR 4. You will also pay the tax to the government exchequer. One more return will be filed, which is called the annual return, and for composition scheme the name of this form is GSTR 9A. This is the annual return, and these two formats like GSTR 4 and GSTR 9A both are very simple form, very easy to fill. So, these composite dealers, they are relaxed from the filing. Even the format is not complicated. These forms they are too simple to fill. It means this scheme, once you opted the scheme, this scheme is very much beneficial. Now you are running your business under the scheme, composition scheme, you are enjoying the benefits of it, you are not at all bothered with the rate of taxes. One rate is applicable on you, you are running your business under by fulfilling all the conditions of composition scheme. Now, for example, one day what happened, you crossed the limit of 1 crore. Now, it means now the basic eligibility criteria is no more applicable on you. What it means? Now you cannot enjoy the benefits of composition scheme. Now you have to come out of the scheme. Now there is again a procedure to exit, that how I will come out of the scheme. To exit from the scheme, the prescribed form is CMP 04. This is the exit form, that now I do not want to opt this composition scheme. This is the intimation you will give to government. Okay, now I am out of the scheme. Now I want to run my business as a regular taxpayer. Now I am entering into the regular scheme. Again I will have to tell the stock lying with me, because definitely now I have a stock. The information of this stock I will again intimate through form ITC 01. Now this is also the intimation that this is the total stock lying with me, and this is the total information which you will provide within the 30 days of the withdrawal from the scheme, right. Now you are out of this scheme. Now it is not mandatory that you cross the limit, you cross the threshold limit, only then you can exit from the scheme. Even voluntarily you can exit from the scheme also. For example, during the year you feel that no, I do not want to avail the scheme, or certain situation may happen. For example, now I am doing business in Delhi, intrastate business, I am selling only in Delhi, but now I got the opportunity to make sellings or making supplies in, for example, Maharashtra, Tamil Nadu. Then under those situations I cannot make a supply, because the composition scheme has restricted me to make the interstate supplies. Now what is option with me? Now the option with me to immediately exit from the scheme, so that it will not put any hindrance on me to make the supplies interstate, right. So voluntarily at any time. Now here I also want to mention that even during the year at any time I can exit. There is a bar on the entry, but there is not at all any bar on the exit at any time. For example, on 1st July through the transition I opted the composition scheme, but in the December I feel that no, I want to exit from the scheme. Even in the December, I can exit from the scheme. There is not any hindrance on exit here, right? So friends, the next point, cancellation of composition scheme. Even the proper officer can cancel the composition scheme for a particular taxpayer. Under what circumstances he can do? For example, you have opted the scheme wrongly actually. Then notice will be sent to you. You have to make a reply to such type of show cause notices, and thereafter he can even cancel your composition scheme, right. This is the material which I have provided here for your information and for your reading here. Now, for example, here you have to be very vigilant before opting the composition scheme. Reason being, the consequences of contravention of any of the composition levy, they are very hard, because you can be penalized under section 73 or section 74. So, it means before taking decision to enter into the composition scheme, it is very important to know the various conditions under the composition scheme. This is very important. So, always be vigilant before opting the composition scheme. Now, here it is a time to make an interpretation, because as I told you, there are stringent penalties if I am wrongly opting the composition scheme. So, the interpretation part is here very important. First point, cannot provide the services along with the goods supply here, that I should not be the service provider, because only the restaurant business they are allowed to take the composition scheme. Thereafter, another point is that not dealing in the tax free or the zero rated supply. Why I am not allowed here the zero rated supply? Because the zero rated supply means here the exports, and exports are always called the interstate supplies. The moment I am saying that it is an interstate supply, it means I cannot take composition scheme, right. That is why zero rated supplies are not allowed to take composition scheme. One interesting thing here, very interesting thing, that under the composition scheme you cannot avail the ITC. This is actually some hardship in case of composition scheme. Actually, I will not say it is a hardship, this is the structure of the scheme, that you cannot avail the ITC here. Because for example, if I am buying something, if something is my inward supplies, I have paid tax on all those inward supplies. Now on these supplies, inward supplies, I cannot avail the input tax credit, it will become my cost, right. So, you have to consider this point before opting the scheme. Then the scheme is totally optional, and thereafter one more thing, very interesting thing, manufacturer of ice cream, pan masala, tobacco, they are not allowed to take this scheme. Many times the people used to make a mistake here, because restaurants they are allowed to take this scheme. Many times they are also the manufacturer of the ice creams, and they are selling that ice cream in their restaurants. If they are doing such type of activity, at that time they are not allowed to take the composition scheme, although they are defined as a restaurant. So, this point too they have to consider before taking composition scheme. Another thing, that now under composition scheme I cannot sell my products, my goods, my services through e-commerce operator. For example, if I am doing a restaurant business and I am taking the orders from the Zomato, for example. Now I am dealing through the e-commerce operator, I am getting the supplies, I am taking the orders from there as well. It means now I am not allowed to take composition scheme. Thereafter, they cannot collect the tax from the customer. Many times I have even observed the people, what they are doing, they are collecting this 1%, 2% and the 5%, the rates prescribed for under the composition scheme, they are collecting this rate from the customer, which is the wrong practice actually. Government has clearly mentioned that this 1%, 2% and the 5% rate, which is prescribed by the government, they are not to be collected from the ultimate consumer, because this is the part of your cost. It should not be shown in your bill of supply, because this is your cost. So, another point, they cannot issue tax invoice. Now, question arises, why they cannot issue the tax invoice? Because they cannot collect tax from customer. This is the reason. Very interesting point here, which many people are doing actually mistake. What they are feeling, that now they have a one PAN, against that PAN they have n number of business. For example, in Delhi, UP, Maharashtra, Gujarat, they are doing business under that one PAN. Now they are understanding that they can opt composition scheme in one state and they can opt the regular scheme in another state. This is actually the wrong practice. This is the wrong. Because if you opt for composition scheme in one state, for example, I opted the composition scheme in Delhi and I have another business in UP, then in both the businesses I have to take the composition scheme. This is the mandatory. And the moment I am withdrawing or I am coming out of the composition scheme in a one state, it's implied that I am coming out of the composition scheme in rest of the states also. So, this is very important point to be noted here. So, now the final analysis about this scheme. Why this scheme is good for us, why we should opt the scheme or why we should not opt the scheme. First thing which is very important here is the reduction in the compliance cost. There is a less compliance cost. Why there is a less compliance cost? Because there is a filing of quarter returns. I am not supposed to file my returns every month. Definitely I am not going to pay any fees to the professional every month or paying the tax every month. So, I am relaxed from the burden of monthly filings. This is one of the advantage of opting the scheme, composition scheme. And I would say this is the disadvantage, that no ITC is allowed for the companies, because that ITC will become the part of the cost for the company. Then another advantage is accounts and records maintenance is very simple, because under the regular scheme there are huge burden, there are prescribed formats, there are certain conditions which are prescribed for the maintenance of accounts and records, but under the composition scheme you are relaxed from, in fact the process is very simple. The simplified way of maintaining your accounts and records is there. And another advantage of opting this composition scheme is item wise record is not required to be maintained here. So, we are relaxed from this obligation as well. Another advantage, composite dealer are supposed to make a lump sum tax at very nominal rate. This is also the advantage, because I have seen many restaurant people, they were charging the wrong rate of taxes. Initially they were not clear whether to apply 12% rate, 18% rate, 5% rate. There were so many ambiguities with respect to the rates, but under the composition scheme there is not at all. So, in the another advantage of composition scheme is that there is not any requirement of maintaining the item wise records, and further correlating the sales with the purchase, it is totally done away. So, this is the main advantage of this composition scheme. Thereafter, the lump sum tax rate at very nominal rate is prescribed here. So it means now you are not burdened with the knowing the so many rates actually. There is not at all any ambiguity in this case, because if you are a manufacturer, then it means only 1% rate is applicable. If you are a trader, only 2% rate is applicable. If you are a restaurant, your business is restaurant, then in that case only 5% rate is applicable. You need not to know the rate for your product here. So this is the one of the advantage, and thereafter another point which I will not say here the advantage, actually this is the disadvantage for the composite dealers, that they cannot avail the they cannot do the interstate supplies. So it means in crux, in nutshell, I can say that this scheme is useful for the taxpayers who are doing their business at small scale, whose turnover is below 1 crore rupees, and they are doing only the intrastate supplies of their product or services, and there is not any hardship on them of availing ITC. So in conclusion, in nutshell, I will say that this composition is good for those taxpayers, in fact the small taxpayers whose turnover is below 1 crore rupees and who are doing only the intrastate supplies, and they do not want to avail this ITC, and availing of the ITC is not even beneficial for them. So under these situations, this scheme is very beneficial, and it will really relax you from the monthly compliances, and return filing is very simple, format is very simple, and compliance part is very simple, and by following this compliances, you can do your business very smoothly. Thanks friends for listening this video. I wish all of you become excellent professionals and contribute towards the motto ICSI, India's GST partner. Thank you very much.